Today's episode of the Life of Phys Podcast is brought to you by Very Good Presets. All photographers know how saturated and underwhelming the preset market can be. You see some styles you like, you buy that pack of 20 presets, and when you put them on your photo, none of them look like what you expected. Very Good Presets has a different approach to color grading. Rather than a pack of presets, they offer them one at a time with modifiers to help refine that preset to your liking. Each preset has months of focus and calibration to make sure you get an incredible end result. Their film emulations have been used by major brands and artists such as country superstar Luke Combs. Additionally, a growing community of users rally around the brand and its developers to inspire and encourage one another. Very Good Presets strives to be an industry leader in a culture of generosity, giving regularly to organizations that help underserved communities have access to cameras, film, and photography equipment. My personal favorite preset is 1956, but with the recent release of the Portra 800, that may change soon. Check out Very Good Presets at verygoodpresets.com and try one or more of their presets using our discount code, Life of Phys. Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I have Bryan Brock. Bryan is an artist, photographer, designer, and filmmaker based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He documents the beautiful and often untold stories of everyday life in the city. His work explores a variety of intersecting social themes, including race, family, community, culture, and capitalism. Bryan has worked with major brands such as Adidas, American Express, Foot Locker, Warner Music, Uninterrupted, and Invisalign. He has had exhibitions in Toronto, New York, and Seattle. He has also self-published a book in 2022 titled Same Difference, been interviewed and featured on many platforms, and is a member of the G44 Center for Contemporary Photography. Bryan works for the Remix Project, where they help level the playing field for talented youth who face barriers pursuing careers in arts and entertainment. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by HoboLight. HoboLight is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because HoboLight believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HoboLite.
What's going on, Tyson? Appreciate you having me here, man. My name is Bryan Brock, and I'm a street photographer based out of Toronto, Canada. In all honesty, I'm fairly new to the scene, I would say. I picked up my camera in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, and it was really just a way for me to start learning something new. I come from like a design background, creative direction, working in like music and entertainment. You know, that world is very last minute, is very stressful. You've got crazy deadlines. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5 when you're doing that type of stuff. And simultaneously, I've always been involved in not-for-profit space, working in different communities and supporting youth. So it's been an insane balance my whole, I guess, adult life in what I love to do, but also like what pays the bills, right? And then I just got to almost like a breaking point where I kind of needed something that was just mine, where there was no deadlines, there was no budgets, there was no expectations. And honestly, during the pandemic, I just went down like a rabbit hole of YouTube videos and photo books and researching. And I realized like, oh man, this is like an amazing opportunity for me to learn a new skill set, slow things down, not have to worry about all those expectations, and maybe just start creating for myself again. And that's like a really pivotal moment for me in my life. And I think it'll be even more important as I get older to look back on. But if I hadn't have picked up that camera in 2019, there could have been a great chance that I just reached like burnout level because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't making space for myself anymore. And I was not creating for the fun of creating. I was only making things for commercial purposes and for other people to find success in. And, you know, I did find value and fulfillment in aspects of that because it is great to see an idea come from nothing to something. But at the same time, when your stomach or your heart is telling you, you know, you get that feeling that something's missing, I was like, man, I got to change something. And that's when the camera kind of entered my life. And it's been insane for the last like 3 or 4 years. Like everything's changed. And I'm very fortunate and happy about it.
That's amazing. So we basically picked up the camera right around the same time. So I was early 2019,
Nice.
right at the release of the Fujifilm X-T3.
Oh yeah.
That was the first camera I bought. And I credit the pandemic with my rapid learning curve because I was off work for 3 months. And every single day I would leave at sunrise and I would come back mid-afternoon. So whether I was shooting wildlife or nature or landscape or street, I was gone 7-8 hours a day, walking, shooting photos, just capturing moments, learning my camera, learning the craft. So yeah, I credit the pandemic as my jumpstart into this field as well.
Oh wow. So there you go. Right away, we're off to a good start.
Yes, sir. So what made you really draw yourself into street photography? Is that just based on your geographical location?
That's a good question. Honestly, okay, so Toronto for sure is an interesting space. It makes sense that street photography could be a thing here, but that actually wasn't in any of my like thinking or deciding to pick up a camera and wanting to explore that. I think one of the things I understood about myself after having some time to reflect was that I had turned into this person that was so focused on getting from point A to point B, I was not paying attention to everything in the middle. And there's a million sayings out there that talk about it's the process, it's not the finish line that we should be experiencing and grateful for. In all honesty, that's what it was. I was so caught up in doing all these things because I was doing multiple jobs, like from freelance to full time to contract to whatever. And, you bring it all back into one place and it's like, well, where can you slow down? Like, where can you do something that is solo and not reliant on a team or a group of people? And that's when the street just kind of hit me like, oh, I don't need to rely on anyone to do this. I could go out in the morning, like you said, or, after work, or if I have a weekend off, man, let me put in like those reps and do like 8 hours on the street. And that was just like a level of freedom I haven't experienced for a very, very long time. And once you are on the street, like there's nothing that can deny the energy you get from shooting on the street, especially in a big city like Toronto or if you travel and you're hitting New York or wherever. There's just an undeniable energy. Also, something that I was missing, just a basic level of humanity. Like in the arts and entertainment or music industry, things like almost don't feel real a lot of the times. Like you're in rooms with celebrities, you're doing events, you're traveling the world, and you're just like, how did I get here? Like, I don't understand. This is kind of crazy. And then when you get back to the street, the beautiful thing is there's no ego, there's no status, there's no I'm better than you or this is what I do for a living. Everything's just life as it is happening right in front of you, and it's up to you to decipher what's beautiful to you and what's not. And I just found a lot of, I don't know, I found a lot of goodness, for lack of a better word, in that experience of being on the street, and it's kept me coming back ever since.
I transitioned away from wildlife landscape shooting to capture street moments.
Yeah.
There's just something real about it. There's stuff that people don't usually see. Like if you go out for a walk at 6 a.m, there's a good percentage of the population that have never been out for a walk at 6 a.m. And
Right.
the streets they walk on when they're up in the early afternoon or late morning, they're completely different. So you have that opportunity to capture a sliver of time that they don't see, but then share it with them again. In your short time, though, I've noticed, like I'm on your website, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at, you've done exhibitions, you've had talks, you've been in publications, you've done, interviews, you've worked with clients like Adidas, American Express, Foot Locker, Warner Music. Man, in that short period of time, dude, that's impressive.
Thank you.
I know there's a lot of people out there that want to do exhibitions or they want to do galleries, but they're afraid of the process. They're afraid of getting themselves to the point where the gallery is ready to open. Do you want to talk about your experience doing it?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm like in any format of what you do in life, I'm a firm believer, excuse me, I'm a firm believer in having what you do live in a space for public consumption. Like people should see and feel and hear and touch whatever you're working on. That's what art's for, right? So my first gallery show, and I wouldn't really say this is like some crazy official thing. Like I wasn't represented by a gallery. I just made it myself. When I turned 40, I only celebrate my birthday like publicly every 10 years. I do something big. And so when I turned 40, I was like, what am I going to do? And that was in 2020. So 2019, that summer is when I picked up my camera and I had shot a ton of stuff on the street. Who knows if it was good or not? I just was excited at the idea of doing something in public with art that maybe no one had seen before. So I had invited all these people that I've known over the last, however many years to my birthday party. And it was at an art gallery and they all showed up and everyone's having a drink, having a good time, whatever. And then all of a sudden people started looking at the art on the walls and they were like, wait a second, this says by you. And I was like, yeah, this is what I've been working on. This is like my first time showing. And it was such I don't know, it was such a cool experience to see the shock and the awe of people. And then just the feedback was like so tremendous that I was like, okay, maybe I am onto something here with just following my heart and doing the street shit. So I think that was what opened me up to understanding what's possible. So that one actually, it's really interesting. That gallery show, I documented the entire process and I made like a really, really mini short doc out of it. It's like 6 minutes, but I made that. And ever since then, it was just kind of like sitting in the vault. Eventually, that's what ended up launching the YouTube video, the YouTube channel. But to get back to the gallery stuff, fast forward to 2022, I'd been shooting on the street for a couple of years. Honestly, there wasn't that much to shoot being locked down in Canada. It was like pretty tough to do street photography. But I did make a trip to New York and I hooked up with my guy Sen Floyd out there. And together we shot in both cities, New York and Toronto. And after looking at each other's work, we were like, yo, I think we have something here. And that's when we started to work on our collaborative photo book. And this is like a long story short kind of vibe, but essentially we took the idea of putting this book together and how we would launch it would be through a gallery, both in Toronto and New York. And that experience was incredible. So, there's everything from picking the location to finding out how much does it cost, to how are you presenting your work? Are you printing your work? Is it on archival photo paper? Are you framing your work, or is it pinned up, or are you doing vinyl and sticking it to the walls? Like there's so many things that go into presenting your work properly. And then there's, the like logistics of event planning, like who's working the door? How are we selling prints? Who's running the bar? How many DJs do we need for the night? Where's the equipment come from? Like the list goes on and on. So I would just say all of this to say it's an incredible amount of work, but it's worth it. I think you should always show your work publicly. And even if you're not ready, like it's okay. Like I'm nobody in the big scheme of things. So who am I to say that I should have a gallery? Well, who cares about what other people think? Like just do you. And those experiences were some of the best experiences I've ever had since picking up a camera.
Is that book still available anywhere or is it sold out?
Man, it's sold out, but I do have like a couple random like sample copies left. So I'll definitely send one out to you.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. I love the fact that you chose two different cities. They both have a different vibe, different feel, but the photos, they get brought together. It's so important to collaborate with like-minded people. It really amplifies and extends your reach. I appreciate you talking about how much work it actually takes. That behind-the-scenes work, that's where you make a successful anything, is where you put in those hours that people don't see.
Totally. That was months of planning and work and lots of investment. You got to put up your own money, or you got to write a grant, or you got to get a sponsor. Like it's a lot, man. People don't realize.
I see on your site here, it says funding provided by the Ontario Arts Council. Mm-hmm. So is that the grant you were talking about?
Yeah, and that's the first grant I ever received. So I'm a member of this contemporary art gallery and film space in Toronto called Gallery 44.
Okay.
And they were allowed to be what's called a recommender. So almost someone that kind of like vouches for you when you do a grant that's called a gallery exhibition grant or exhibition assistance grant. And now the interesting thing in Canada, which is a lot different than the US, we have a huge arts like funding model for people of all different types of artist practices. But because I was only like a year into photography, even though I have like a 20 plus year track record as a creative person and industry work, as an actual artist, I was deemed as a beginner because I hadn't shown work to a certain level or whatever the requirements were. So I had to get a recommender, which was Gallery 44. I put in the submission. I wrote the grant myself, which probably wasn't the smartest idea. I should probably work with a grant writer. But I did receive exhibition assistance for the Toronto show. And it was a great experience to get that. Like it was a small amount. It was $500, but $500 goes a long way when you're going into it with like, I'm ready to lose money just because I need to do this. I want to do this. So yeah, that was a huge help. And then what rounded it out was a balance between getting sponsorship, so corporate sponsorship, and then the sale of the book. The book sales were like surprisingly really good. Like we sold out of somewhere over 200 books.
Nice.
And that pushed us over the edge so we could like at least break even or maybe even make a couple dollars. I don't know.
I mean, I can see how much it means to you just by the expressions when you talk about it. And that's something that I've wanted to do a gallery for so long, just something to put my work out. And I've always been so afraid. And like through talking to people like yourself and the growth of this podcast, putting myself out there anymore now is not a huge deal. Mm-hmm. Whatever, what's someone going to say? They don't like it? Oh no.
Yeah.
And I turned 50 this year. So this
Oh,
might
sick.
be,
Congrats.
this might be, 50. This might be
Yeah.
something. I like that, man. I might have to talk to you off camera and
Yeah, let's do it.
get some pointers from you, get some ideas. So when you got in, did you use some of your past creative connections to enhance, like the clients you've worked with, or did you just find these clients after you started shooting?
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing. I did not want to make money off of photography when I picked up the camera because I found that so many things I was doing, although I loved them, there was some level of, transactional things happening. I have to make money, you have to pay the bills. So you're doing things you love, but you're getting paid for it. Like, who am I to complain? But at the same time, I was never creating for myself, like I said earlier. So this moment in time allowed me to create for myself. And I think a lot of times, at least with like getting paid, there's just so many strings attached. So I didn't want to do that with photography. And then the weirdest thing happened, and maybe this isn't weird, maybe this happens all the time to people, but I started posting my work regularly and just on Instagram or whatever. And the feedback kept getting better as maybe I started getting better. I was learning every day. I'm still learning how to be better every day. But what ended up happening was people would reach out and be like, hey, do you shoot this? Or can I hire you for that? And in all honesty, most of it I had never done in my life before. Any sets I had been on or album cover artwork I had done or anything, stage graph, you name it, I usually worked with a photographer and I did the creative direction or art direction. So this was all new to me. And the one thing I will say is everyone reached out to me, but I did start this by reaching out to a production company because I thought I could maybe learn how to do BTS work on set of like a TV or movie or whatever commercial. And I wanted to see, could my skill set that I'm learning on the street be transferable to a commercial setting and be a fly on the wall where no one really cares about the guy or the girl who's doing the BTS work. Like, yeah, it has to get done, but it's not like a top priority. So I kind of felt safe in that sense of like maybe I can mess up and learn on the job. And that's really what opened my eyes to like, oh, you can actually work with people that you want to work with and still create some interesting things, and it doesn't feel the same as like when I was doing graphic design work or creative direction work. So a lot of those clients just came from people knowing me or me sharing my work or people being like, hey man, I want to try and work with you and see if it works. And most of the time it's worked out. I don't think I've really like messed up a job, but could I do jobs better? Probably. um, but yeah, the intention was never to make money off of this. This was like something I just needed to do for myself.
Is this something you do full time now?
Man, I would love it if this was a full-time gig. No, I still work in the not-for-profit space in the city of Toronto. We run a charity called the Remix Project, and we empower young people, pretty much ages 16 to like 25, give or take, from priority neighborhoods, and they're they're young people that have they're super talented. They just come from scenarios where like they may not have resources or supports, and we work very hard around the clock to try and break some of those glass ceilings and get them into the industries they want to pursue, those careers they want to pursue. And so that's my full-time gig. I do that on the daily. So anything I do with photography, whether it's for myself or if I get hired to do something, that's pretty much, after work hours or on the weekends or late night when I should be asleep.
I love that. I love that you're doing stuff for the youth. I have a project in the works I'm Indigenous, so I have a project for Indigenous youth. Originally it was going to just be in Canada, but now I have some pretty heavy hitters in the US who are like, dude, you're onto something. Like, I want to be a part of this, where I'm going to figure out how to provide cameras. I want to get them in the hands of Indigenous youth across Canada for 30 days. Then they send them back to me. I do a contact sheet of all their photos. And then we have a collective. So there's like, I don't know, I'm thinking there'll be 10 of us who we don't critique. We just offer our advice and our experience to them. And the ones that have that drive to continue shooting photos and capture moments people don't see, one of the people will talk to either a friend of theirs or someone they know that has old camera gear, will provide them a camera and a year mentorship with the person who provided the camera.
That's incredible.
And that's something that it's near and dear to me. Like, it hits me every time I talk about it. And I want to do it. I want to figure out how to make this happen. And the more that I'm doing my podcast, the more people I'm meeting, like yourself, for not for profit. I mean, I've got questions,
For sure.
right? And it's just something I really want to see roll out, probably end of 2024, coming into 2025, see what they capture, because there's so much that goes on in Indigenous communities that the general public don't see. There's
100%.
so much beauty, right? Like, I picture so much stuff just from what I've seen being allowed on the land. If they could capture the moments that no one else sees, yeah, it could be an incredible adventure. They could realize there's something bigger out there, right? They
I
could
think
find a new art
for
form.
anyone. Yeah. That's man. Any advice you need, if I can help, I definitely will.
We'll talk about that one off camera as well.
Cool.
So with your YouTube is something that everybody now wants to get into. They think it's, the quick way to make $1 million. They're going to put a video up. It's going to go viral, things like that. So how long have you been putting effort into your YouTube?
Okay, so that first video I was talking about with my 40th birthday and the BTS of making that gallery show,
Yep.
that was probably the first video I put on YouTube. But that was without having a plan. It was just like, hey, YouTube's an incredible space. I've learned a lot from it. I think long form content is something I'm into, and I wanted to try something new. So I posted that, and I wasn't expecting much, and I don't think it got like crazy views or anything. And then not long after that, I posted another gallery video. I got invited to be a feature artist in Seattle for a group show. and it was with the work that I had done with Division, the R&B group, and I flew out there and I kind of documented that and put that up. And, same thing, like not a lot of people saw it. And I was just like, well, it's still cool for me to create things that I wouldn't have created normally. It's almost like a visual diary for me. That's kind of how I treated the first year of YouTube, was just a visual diary. And then last year, December, I just decided to take a trip by myself. And I spent 5 days in Miami. I needed like a warmer climate than a December in Toronto. And I spent 5 days in Miami, and I treated it like a work trip where every day I was putting in anywhere from like 6 to like 10 hours. And I just did research and I looked at, okay, what are the things that I'm good at? What are the things that I need to get better at? What do I want to talk about if I do more YouTube videos? What are the, not competition, but like, what's the landscape look like for photography on YouTube? Because there's so many directions you could take it. And man, I spent 5 days and it was like life changing for me in the sense of getting focus and clarity. And I got to the point of understanding, okay, my reality is I could probably do 2 videos a month for a year. And that's my goal. So we're in June now, we're halfway through the year. And I've been able to maintain 2 videos a month. So I'm trying to stick to that. But yeah, in the beginning, it was just like, how do I do something for fun again? How do I learn a new skill set? And it's been a very challenging one. Not, I would almost say more personally challenging than like maybe the general public could tell from watching a video. But I'm cool to have a conversation. I'm great to moderate a panel discussion. I've done that for years. I'm cool to do like a quick keynote speech or something. But what I'm not cool with is talking to a camera, and only a camera.
It's hard.
It's insanely hard. So anyone that's like great at that on YouTube, like I give you all the respect in the world, because I do not know how your personality shines through on something like that where there's not another human involved. So I'm getting better at I gotta get better at that still, but
I struggle where to look.
I don't
It's
even know.
so tough. So I've been posting, just, I don't know if you saw them on Instagram or Threads. I've just been doing, I try every weekend now just to put the camera up in front of me and just talk. I'm good at talking, so I just talk about whatever's on my mind, and I don't edit it. Mess ups, I laugh at myself. I'm like, if I look awkward, there's people driving by in a car staring at me right now, right?
Yeah.
But I'm doing it because I'm trying to show myself it doesn't matter what's going on around me. Just be myself, be authentic, and just talk. It will come through. But I find myself staring right down the camera lens, just big-eyed right in the camera. Like,
Yeah.
okay, where am I looking? And so I see why people wear sunglasses and do stuff, because then you can't tell where they're looking. It looks more natural maybe, but I feel like I'm not as connected if I do that.
So I'm conflicted in two ways. I want to be me when I'm talking on YouTube, but I noticed I can go on tangents and I can go off, in the wrong direction, and just it doesn't get to where I need to go. So I'm like, how do I get better at that? Okay, well, I asked a few questions of other YouTubers, and they said they use scripts. They write scripts, and they use like, whether it's a teleprompter app or an iPad or whatever, and they use a script for the video. And I'm like, okay, cool, let me try that. But the problem with that is the way I type like I'm writing a professional email instead of how I talk. So I'm writing these scripts and I'm like, man, this doesn't really sound like me, but okay, let me try that out. And then I've gotten a little bit better at that. But at the same time, I have not, like, I can openly and honestly say, I have not figured out my equation yet to doing what I want to do as well as I'd like to. But I will also say this. I think it's really dope for anyone that's watching, whether it's this listening to this podcast or watching my YouTube channel or anything I've posted on IG. You can see a huge difference in where I started to where I am now. And I hopefully will be able to show people that there's another huge difference as I continue to grow and learn. which I hope would then inspire others to actually take that leap and feel uncomfortable, get out of your comfort zone and try. Because, man, as quote unquote, as established as I may have been in my other career and my past life, this is all new to me. So I was just as scared as the next person, just as nervous, worried about what people would have thought. But all that fades away, and it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm just doing something I want to get better at and have fun doing.
It's always neat. So, the first video, you watch it, especially if you go back to it after a few months or a year or whatever it is, and you can see how nervous you are and how all over the place you become. And then where you are now, where you have straight conversations and you just flow with it. I noticed that here on the podcast. My first episode, I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
I literally learned how to use Zoom 30 minutes before the call. That's
incredible.
I scheduled a call and I was like, oh, I got a month. No problem. Well, life gets busy.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes before, I'm like looking it up. Okay, how do I get the best sound out of this? And
crazy.
And now, like I was telling you earlier, I pay for the Zoom, so I don't have any interruptions. It's unlimited length. I back up, so this machine records as well. Mm-hmm. So this is recording another track in case I lose Zoom. I have this backup on an SD card that I transfer right to a hard drive. I didn't know this machine even recorded, even though it has a big red record button. I didn't know what that meant. So kindly donated, from Brady in White Rock, BC, to help push my podcast to the next level. So
that's amazing.
I love the fact that you're like, just get out and try it. Just do what you got to do. When you're out shooting, like when you're out recording, what are you recording yourself with? Do you just use your iPhone or your cell phone?
Okay, so I guess there's two ways of doing it. If I'm doing like POV style, I'll mount a GoPro on top of my camera.
Yep.
Which has been like pretty cool for that point of view. But if I'm doing like a community photo walk, or if I'm doing something that I need to be speaking to the camera more, ideally I have someone that would shoot that for me. But it's expensive to do that. You can't do it all the time. So I've also tried like the old school vlogging style where you're just talking to the phone. And my whole New York trip was talking on the phone. And it's interesting. I felt more comfortable doing that for some reason. But I don't do a lot of it anymore. I don't even know why I don't, but I probably should. But yeah, those are the three ways I've tried to shoot while I'm on the street.
So I just picked up a GoPro with the media kit and, all of that. And I've got the Rode wireless mics for it, yada, yada, yada. But man, like putting this up in front of me like this to talk, opposed to, for some reason with my cell phone, I feel like it's because people talk on FaceTime all the time when they walk. Yeah. So people just think you're on FaceTime and it doesn't matter. You have this up, they're interested. They want to know what you're doing.
Totally.
And that really makes me even more uncomfortable. So I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Right. And then you feel silly but we just got to get past that part.
Yeah. The reality is no one really cares. And if they do, they don't care enough for it that it should bother you.
100%. So Bryan does street walks. He gets groups together, takes them around. I saw you did one in Montreal recently.
Yeah, that was a solo one. That was fun just because I haven't been to Montreal in years. So I did that more or less on my own. But the ones that I've been doing, the larger groups, I've been doing those mainly in Toronto just because I have access and I know a lot of the neighborhoods.
What made you want to start getting these community groups together of multi-talented artists to come out and walk and shoot with you?
Yeah. So I think it's like two things. One, being so ingrained in the idea of community with my not-for-profit work. I've been doing that for almost 20 years and it's second nature. Plus like some of the initiatives that I've done in the city in like my past life, I'll call it, just like small businesses or whatnot, they've all been community focused. And, when it came to photography, although it was a solo adventure, when I started, there's definitely no harm in like getting people to experience things together, especially if they're like-minded or they have goals that they want to achieve, or worst case, if it's just like a social thing. So I think for me, my first photo walk, I just put it up on Instagram and I said, like, who wants to roll? I'm going to do this in a neighborhood in Toronto between Chinatown and Kensington Market. And I had like 10 people show up and I was blown away. I was like, this is really cool. I've got 10 young people that are excited to shoot. Some people just had their cell phones, which is great. Other people had, a point and shoot or maybe like an old school film camera. And then some people had like, high end digital cameras that were amazing. I'm like, this is such an interesting thing. Like everyone's coming from a different perspective. They have different gear and they're at different skill levels. So we did that walk and it was super fun, man. Like it was just one of those things where I don't know if you've ever been overcome with like a feeling of genuineness, whether it's from one person or a scenario. But that scenario just showed me like the goodness in people again and how it feels to be in a group of like-minded people with no other agendas. Like it was just let's shoot and have fun and let's learn. And so I did one, and it was, like I would consider a success on a very small level. And then people started asking, "Hey, man, that looked cool. Like, when are you doing another one?" And eventually, I did another one, and that went well. It was even more people showed up, and then eventually, it just turned into this thing where it's like, man, no one else is really doing this, or if they are, like, I'm just not up to speed on who else is in the game doing that. So let me just see what this could be. And it's been beautiful, man. I have I use a text app called Community, where I send out all my invites before I ever do anything public, just because it's more of like a niched thing. So I give everyone access to these things first. And it's great. I have like 300 photographers on my community app. And anytime I want to do something, I just send out a text and everyone can hit me back personally. That's kind of the vibe. So it's grown to this thing where normally I would do like maybe once a month in the summer, but I've just done like four in the last like 5 or 6 weeks. It's been insane.
That's super cool. I know in Vancouver, I shoot a lot of solo stuff.
Hmm.
There's something about for me just going out as a solo shooter. I'm not taken over by anybody else's look. I just shoot what I see. But I really want to build a community similar to what you're doing, but on this coast.
Oh yeah.
So I've been looking and been trying to figure out how to even get started. So that community app is pretty cool. And I know there's a ton of talented street photographers here that we could just, even if it's one or two, that will turn into 3 or 4, which will turn into 10 to 20, and it will just continue to grow.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's such a cool experience to know that when you put these things on, there's a group of people that are going to be there. They're going to support it, and they're going to be right there walking the street, capturing those moments with you.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's experiences that come from that. There's relationships that grow because of it. And even recently we did a new experience where we did a film photography only street walk, and Ilford actually sponsored it. So they actually put up 25 rolls of film for the people that attended, and I partnered with a local film lab here in Toronto called Memento, and they're actually doing all the developing and scanning for free. And then later in July, we're actually coming together for a group show. So every person from
So
that photo
cool.
walk, yeah, is going to get to show their work for the first time, and it'll be directly from that roll from that photo walk. So I'm excited at just like creating opportunities for people to also do new things and experience photography in a new way.
And you're going to break the ice on the gallery. That's going to make it so these talented people are going to be like, okay, I did one. It was a group. Now I can do my own.
I
Get
hope so.
that first event jitters out of the way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. I'm
So
excited.
what do you shoot with?
Okay, so when I'm doing street, I really just go between two cameras. If it's digital, I have a Leica Q2, and if it's film, now I have a Leica M6. But let me give context to how I got to that, because you definitely don't start with an M6. Uh, so for the first 2 years of shooting street, the only film camera I had was a Ricoh GR1V. It's a older model film camera, just a point and shoot in essence, but it does have like exposure compensation and You can change a few of the settings that gives you a little more control than your average point and shoot. But the first 2 years of Street were all anything film was all on the Ricoh, and it has like a I think it's a 28 millimeter like Zeiss glass on that little point and shoot. So the images come out like, in my opinion, like really clean and clear for film. And so it took me a long time to justify going from something that I really liked shooting that was small, compact, fit in your pocket, and no one even like bothered you when you had that camera on the street, to being like, man, like my dream camera that everyone talks about, that I've watched 4 million YouTube videos about and read books on, and uh, and it took me, yeah, two years of shooting with the Ricoh, and a lot of saving up before I could get that M6, and that's what I shoot with primarily now on the street.
Nice. I'm a huge Leica guy. I love everything about the company.
Oh yeah.
Eventually it will be the brand I shoot, but not rushing it. It'll happen when it happens. Fuji now. That's what I shoot now. I just
Amazing.
out on an XT5 with a TT Artisan manual 35mm 1.4.
Oh, crazy.
Such a cool little combo.
Yeah.
It's just weird with that high megapixel sensor and this glass that's not, clinically sharp, but it just has a feel to it. And with it being manual, it slows you down. I shoot everything in black and white.
Amazing.
And then it always pops up color on the screen. So if it looks better color, it stays color.
Huh, that's cool.
Just make it simple. I don't have to, I don't have I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to put out what makes me happy.
That's the best part. Yeah.
How do you see the connection between creativity and mental health?
Oh man, I don't think you can even like say that there isn't one. I think it's intertwined. A lot of artists need, and when I say need, I actually mean like need to create to feel alive and to feel the version of life that they want to live. So I don't think when it comes to creativity, you could separate either of them. And some of the best artists arguably have had to deal with, whether it's addictions or mental health issues or things that have informed their artistic choices and the art that we've come to know. So I think it goes hand in hand. I think nowadays we are lucky in the way of being able to talk about things more. So, you may not have to go down a path that may be as dark as what it used to be, because there are more supports and there are more people willing to talk and reach out to. I spoke about it earlier, but like I probably would have reached some level of burnout, which would definitely have an effect on me mentally as well as physically. And the camera allowed me to do something, you mentioned it earlier as well, but slowing down. Camera allowed me to slow down and pay attention to life. And it also brought like a calming feeling. I found a lot of peace. When I first started walking the street, I told people it was like therapy for me. And it's not necessarily something where I'm recovering from some overt trauma that affected my life that I'm aware of anyways. But it was just the sense of every time I'm on the street, it feels good. It feels right. I feel at peace. I'm living in the moment as opposed to like looking towards the future or complaining about something that happened in the past. So I think there's a lot of power in any artist form, but specifically photography for me. Yeah, it's still therapy every time I hit the street.
Now, if you think back to it, the eras of people telling men to suck it up, push it down, your feelings don't matter, men don't cry, all that nonsense that was through, the 60s, 70s, 80s into the 90s. If you think about all those artists that were struggling back then, that were so talented, that are no longer with us, can you just imagine what the difference may have been?
Totally.
If they would have just been okay to reach out and talk to somebody. So that's just one of those things that's always in my brain. I mean, you think about like Jean-Michel Basquiat, absolutely incredible artist. What if he had someone to talk to?
Totally.
Right? It could have been different.
Yeah.
There's just so many what ifs, even into the new days. Like, we lost Ricky Powell a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that one was crazy because when you saw him, you knew there was something going on, but he was always so full of life.
Yeah.
You know, he
Well,
loved his story. So just if you could talk to people, man, like people just need to be okay reaching out. Doing this podcast brought me to get a therapist myself. And that
oh,
was
that's
something
amazing.
I never thought I would do. But if I'm talking about it and telling people that therapy is okay and it's good, I need to be working on myself too. So being able to take steps and grow as a human being, even at 49 years old, where I was told my whole life that men don't cry, suck it up, you're tough, don't take crap from anybody, don't show emotion and all that nonsense. And I've had, I think, 4 sessions now, and it's been so relieving.
Wow. That's good to hear, man. Good for you for taking that step.
It's weird how it came about, but this podcast made me realize that I need to take care of myself too.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah, the connection, man. There's so many crazy connections between the creative space and positive mental health. But it can go the other way too. It can create a negative mental health with people thinking it's okay to badmouth you or send you awful comments. And, when you're just getting started, a comment like that can just derail your whole focus. How do you deal with all the fun that can come from YouTube and social media in general?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's interesting because we're both over the 40-year mark, so we've lived a life before social media. So I think for me, the old school version of me would have been like, in my early teens to early 20s, you deal with haters no matter what. Whether you're successful at something or, you're playing on a certain ball team and someone's angry about your playing time, like whatever it is, there's always something that someone's going to hate on you. So I think I developed pretty thick skin as a young man, just based on that. And then moving into this new phase where I kind of opened a new chapter with photography and YouTube and whatnot. I could care less if someone wants to spend any part of their day leaving a negative comment. A negative comment to me is more of, at first glance, it's humorous because it's like, wow, I can't believe someone took the time to say that. But then on second glance, but bringing it back to mental health, you actually sometimes wonder, is there something wrong that 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 person feels the need to go out of their way to do something that's like could be hurtful? And and I'm all for like constructive criticism. There's a difference, right, between the folks that like have something of value to add and can maybe make what you're doing better, and maybe you're not aware of something, so they're putting you onto that knowledge. But then there's the folks that obviously are there just for the wrong reasons. And I just made a rule to myself for YouTube. I just don't respond. I'll respond to every comment that anyone makes when they have a question or want to learn something or whatever. Even a positive comment, I'll say thank you. But if it's negative or they didn't even watch the video, and I can tell because the comment doesn't make sense if you watch the video, who cares? It's not going to stress me out. I'm good over here.
I'm worried about the younger generations because they grew up with social media. So that there's just so much negativity that can really affect them. So it's nice to hear you share like, man, I just don't do these things. I don't let them affect me. I don't get all up in arms about it. Just it is what it is. I
Yeah.
just roll with it. Dave Herring was saying YouTube has a place where you can block somebody, but it
Oh,
looks like they can still leave a comment, but you don't see it. So
oh,
they see
interesting.
it, but nobody else sees it.
I didn't even know that.
Right. So, that's kind of cool because then you know this person who's going to jump on all your videos with all the nonsense thinking they're a big talker. And then they're going to wonder why, well, nobody's responding. Nobody's saying
Yeah.
anything. Then they just move on.
Yeah.
Um, so it's important. It's really important to get those words out there and just do your thing. Be happy with who
Yeah.
you are. Love what you're doing. And just don't worry about what others say to you. Just
No.
continue to improve your craft. Have a good time doing it. And everything will be good.
Yeah, and focus on the people that are paying attention, that are positive. Those are your real fans and your real friends, and the people that are part of your community. That those are the ones that matter. Like, there's no value in wasting energy on negativity.
Oh, exactly, right? Like, there's just so much positivity in the world that you can grow from, that
Hmm.
those one or two people that have a problem, just push
Yeah,
them to the side.
yeah.
Um, so how important do you believe community is to the growth of the current state of the photography industry?
Oh man, that's a big question.
I gotta do it.
Yeah, no, that's big. I think community is an integral part of any, let's call it genre or like concept. So whether it's football, or photography or kayaking, like I think community matters in every aspect of life. Now, when it comes to an industry, I think community is also great because if the people that are leading the industry, and I don't mean just the photographers that might be quote unquote on top, but the businesses that are supplying all of us with our tools to make incredible work, if everyone's listening and there's open dialogue and opportunities to learn and grow from each other, I don't see anything wrong with community in an industry setting either. Um, I, I feel like my life's been a lot better because of being involved in communities, not just one, but multiple. So I don't think, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all.
I agree. I have this thing. It's for the what I call the people that have been on my show, like the guests. We're all part of the Feist family. Like it's I consider everybody who I reach out to. I get to know you. You're a friend of mine, and that's somebody. It's important because you don't get that very often. And being that we're all like minded, we're all looking. I don't expect somebody who to come on the show that has never actually listened to it and gone, oh, you talk about mental health. Well, I don't want to talk about that. I'm going to talk about how great I am. Sure.
That'd
Like,
be
well,
weird, right?
right. Like it doesn't stick. And about being authentic is I just got a very lucrative financial offer from a brand, but that brand doesn't stick with anything
Mhm.
I do. And could I use the money right now? Oh yeah. This
Sure.
is an expensive endeavor. I'm trying to build a studio,
Sick.
but like, could I have used that money right now? Yeah, I got 5 kid birthdays coming up in 2 months, right? But I have to be true to me and true to what my podcast platform stands for. That I'm not just here to be like, send it to me. Sure,
Of course.
I'll talk about it. So anybody I bring on is very connected in the same way. They have a mission, they have a statement, they have a past, they have a future, and they have a great outlook on where they are currently.
I love
So
that.
so that's why like I saw your stuff, and I probably found you probably been about 6 months or 7 months since I found your work.
Mhm.
And I just love seeing you can see the progress and the happiness like that the camera brings you. And even on your YouTube, like you constantly improve every single time.
Oh
You're
man,
doing it. And
thanks.
it gives me hope because I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, there is a ladder, there is steps. If I keep working, I'm going to get there. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's my thank you to you.
Oh man, I
Thank you
appreciate
for,
that.
you know, we're in the same ballpark as far as time frame that we've done this. And I've always tried to look at people and go, okay, well, if they made it, there's a ladder, there's steps to do it, and it's possible. I don't look at somebody's successes and go, man, they shouldn't have that. Shouldn't be there. I should be there. No, they did it. There's a ladder. There's a formula. I just need to figure out my steps on that ladder and the formula to make it work.
100%.
And that's what I'm trying to put out here. That's the other story. The other aspect of this is don't look at people as competition. Look at what they've done. Look at what they've achieved. Look at the amazingness that they've put out and know that there is a way for you to achieve the exact same thing if you put in the work.
100%. Yeah, there's space for everyone.
There is. It's a huge industry. I mean, you and I
Huge.
we could go for a walk and shoot the exact same things, same camera, same f-stop, same ISO, same everything, and they would look different.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I shoot like a skateboarder, so a lot of my stuff is low and up.
Oh, sick.
So that's because skateboarding for me was something I found in 1982
Mm-hmm.
and 1984, and still to this day is one of the most important things I've ever done in my life.
That's amazing.
You know, like even if I hop on the board and just cruise in my driveway, it's a
Yeah,
feeling of pure freedom. And that's what I found when I was a kid. That first hill I made it successfully down, that was freedom. And that it carried
That's
me
amazing.
it carried me until my late 20s skating at a really high level, and then into my mid to end of my 30s just enjoying myself, and then broke my ankle for the 9th time. And well,
Oh no.
that didn't continue as I would like it. And then I got lost creativity altogether until I found the
Right.
camera.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It informed how you shoot some things now. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, and it's weird because I was listening to a podcast recently with the skateboarder Ray Barbie, and he said the same thing. He's like, I shoot like I skate,
Huh.
and that's where it clicked in my brain of why I do things different. And I'm like, I look and I'll have a leading line almost touching my lens, right? That looks like a long curve or a long curb, sorry, that I could do a grind or a slide on, and
Yeah.
that's the leading line to, who knows, capture. It could be a tent from the homeless camp. It could be anything that's in there, but there's always something that is skateboard related.
That's really cool, man.
So it's a cool process. I mean, photography is such a cool thing to have, man. It's such a good part of my life that I definitely haven't done it justice the last few months.
Well, you've been running a podcast.
Yeah, and this thing here, man. This, as much as I love what this is, I have to remember I'm a photographer. That is my
Mhm.
art form, and I have to remember that it is what brings me clarity. So when I am having those moments of woe is me, you know, why, no, I'm done, this is horrible, I shouldn't do this, I need to pick up my camera to reflect why I started this, and why I talk about the fact that there is that huge connection between creativity and mental health.
Right.
You know, so, you know, and then I saw something yesterday that out of 3,385,000 podcasts, I'm in the top 10%.
Oh, I saw you post that. That's insane, man.
And
Congrats.
I don't know where those stats are from. It's from first and third party, but man, for something that's been going for 4 months, I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah. Take it. Use that momentum.
Even if I am the 365th podcast in that 10%, I don't care.
Yeah, no, that's
That's
incredible.
huge. That's that push that it makes me know that I'm doing something that is making a difference.
Oh,
So,
yeah. And
man,
someone else is gonna see that, and hopefully listen or watch your podcast. And who knows, you might be inspiring the next incredible host or the next concept for a show that we don't even know is gonna exist and do really well. So
I hope
there's
so.
always a ripple effect.
And I really hope so. If anybody has any questions about starting a podcast, I am always open. My inbox is open. All of my Instagram, my threads, whatever you need is open. Send me a message. If I don't have an answer, I'm sure I have a group of people that can answer it for me. Let's just build. Let's be successful. If you're worried about the way you sound, I hated my voice my whole life. And, you know, now it's what draws people into my show and talk about it. And it's really weird, but I have to be accepting. This is what I have. It works. People like it. And it's bringing me other things. It's bringing me voiceover auditions. It's bringing me all sorts of crazy stuff is starting to come just from the way I talk.
Wow.
So I call it my American, Canadian, English mixed together. And then
The
being
dual citizenship.
the dual citizenship voice, and then having a deep voice. People seem to like it. So I'm going to run with it. I'm going to make it earn me some money.
Why not? Why not?
You got any advice that you can offer those new up and comers?
Mm, man, I feel like not even just limited to new up and comers. I would say it's never too late, and maybe that's more for my generation or someone who's been doing one thing their whole life and hasn't thought about what it'd be like to actually switch. But yeah, I just feel like life is so short for the first thing, but the second thing is, at one point you are going to have to look back. If you're lucky enough to grow old and be healthy, you're going to have to look back on your journey. And are you going to look back and say you went for it, even if you didn't make it all the way there, but you tried? Or are you going to say I was too scared and I kept doing the same thing over and over again? And to me, there's a lot more value in like trying at any age, um, and failing or succeeding. The learning is in that process, as we spoke about. So I think my advice would just be like, it's never too late. And if you're passionate about something, man, make time to follow the passion. If it can't be full time to begin with, all good. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour in a day can go a long way when you start compounding that over weeks and months and years. So yeah, just make it happen, and I think most people would be very happy with that.
I mean, I would much rather say that I tried and failed than to never try at all.
Right? That's a
Right?
classic. Yeah.
So just get out there and give it a go. And
Yeah.
if you need advice, there's lots of us out here that will answer questions. There's
Totally.
no worries. Just fire us messages. We're here.
Yeah, and that's a good point actually. Don't be afraid to reach out. That might actually be one of the best points about for an up and comer. Don't be afraid to reach out, because you could hit up someone that you maybe idolize or whatnot that seems too big to even respond to you online. They might respond to you. You never know. A lot of those stories come to light, and people end up working with someone or mentoring with someone, or who knows, just creating a relationship, and you learn from that. So I think that's a great point to bring up.
And also to say yes. Say yes to opportunity. Like, and going back to your point you just said, like someone who seems larger than life and they may respond. When I first started the podcast, I threw a message out to someone I idolize and look up to, as Phil Penman. I love his work. He responded and said, "Hey, I sent this to my marketing team. They'll be in touch." And now we have a date in the books that I'm going to
That's
have
incredible.
Phil Penman on. And his story is impressive. I bare necks, been doing this for a long time. Threw it out to him. He's like, "Yeah, here, fire me an email. Let's figure it out." And Stock Easy, another super
Yeah,
busy,
yeah.
talented photographer who has a heart of gold. So it's like, I've met these people now that some will look at and they'll be like, "Oh, wow, they're at the upper echelon." But every one of them has been just a normal person,
Right.
offering amazing advice, willingness to give me a shot. And, like yourself, you didn't know me from a hole in the ground.
Right,
Right.
right.
And I'm like, dude, let's talk. I think it's important. For me, 1, 2 is another. I want more Canadian creatives.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that.
Being Canadian based, we are a very small population for a very large country.
Yeah. And we're super isolated too for some reason. We're so close to every border in the US, but yet the US doesn't really know much about us.
Yep. And trying to get product from US companies that offer this to us, we have to pay tax, we have to pay duties, we have to pay brokerage fees. Whether we get it for free or not, they allow up to $60 coming across the border. Like, really? Okay, well, here we go.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you know any other or can recommend any other Canadian creatives,
Oh, for sure. I got a huge list I could share.
yeah, fire them over, because I feel like Canada is very underrepresented in the podcast space, in the creative space. I mean, everybody knows we use dog sleds every day to get to and from work, right? But
Hilarious.
I work in the automotive industry, the aftermarket, and
Yeah.
people used to say like, "Man, is it cold up there?" And I was like, "It's 100 degrees outside. What are you talking about?" Yeah. So then it would be like, "Yeah, my dogs, man, I have to give them ice slippers."
Just mess with them.
Yeah, because it was so, and these people would be in like Seattle or Portland, which is
Oh,
the exact same climate we have in
yeah.
Vancouver here, right? So it's just so weird that, they don't talk about Canada at all down there.
No, no.
My whole time I knew about Canada because my mom was from Vancouver. So we'd be up here all the time, but nobody in school ever talked about Canada. So when I came up here to go to school, I was like, I don't know anything about Canada.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Oh, no, no problem. This is something I would do any time of the day. I love the fact that you're trying to put people on, build a community, highlight some people that maybe don't have a main stage or a big platform. I think that's super important, and I really respect that. And just being a fan, like watching and listening, it's kind of crazy for myself to even feel like I'm going to be included in a mix of incredible other photographers and artists that you've either already interviewed or that are still to come. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh man, it's been my pleasure. I'm going to look into this community app that you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like it'd be a great way to keep everybody connected that I have all over the US and Canada now that we've chatted and we're all in the same kind of group and space. And that's kind of another avenue I'm looking at, is how to get everybody connected, because there's so many talented people. They have a job, they get offered another job, and they can be like, hey man, I can't take that one, but I know who can.
Smart.
And maybe that creates an opportunity for someone else in the group.
That's incredible.
And we all just keep growing, right? Like that's what this is about. It's about building a big community of people willing to go to bat for each other, or offer jobs, or offer advice, or just be there, So
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, I am going to do my best to establish this. And if I don't reach that level, hopefully somebody listening that likes my platform and the way I've done it, they can continue my journey, right? But
yeah.
For now, this is everything that I've ever wanted. I've wanted to make something that's important to other people, that's important to me, and we're getting there. We're getting there one day at a time.
Love it, man. Love it. Thank you again. I can't wait to see where you are in another year from now.
That's the scary part. It's it's already crazy, and I'm loving it. That sounds convincing.
Yeah. I believe you.
And the crazy part is I don't even worry about followers. I don't even look at listen counts on my podcast anymore. Like,
nice.
Nothing. That I posted that stat was the first time I was actually blown away by anything it's done. My job here with the podcast is just to put out a great story for people to enjoy listening to. And I feel the more stories I can put out, the more people I can bring light to, the better the world's going to become.
Love it, man. Love it.
Do you have any projects coming up? I don't think we touched on that.
I don't have anything that's going to be done anytime soon. I have a really big personal project that I think would probably take 3 to 5 years and some serious funding. And I'm so excited at the idea. I just need to figure out how to make that happen. But I think in the interim, I may have found a smaller version, almost like a proof of concept that I could do, which may only take me like a year. So and that idea just came to me like last week on how to do this smaller version. So still got to work through those motions. But man, if I could ever do this idea to the level in which I see it in my head, I think it would be a game changer. And I don't even care if it changes for me. It's more of like, I think it's a game changer with the conversations that would be had based on the imagery that I want to create.
Amazing. Well, let me know whatever I can do to help.
Sick. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving me some time this Sunday morning. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too.
Evening. You're like 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's evening here. I'm like 2:30 in the afternoon.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS, or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.